Welcome to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks, a show that provides extraordinary insights for product managers who want to go faster and farther in their product management careers.
Hello, this is JJ Rory, Vice President at Sequent Learning Networks. In our Masters of Product Management podcast, we tap into the experiences of people who work in and around product management to help you learn and grow in your product management career. I'm a product management junkie. I love to consume content on product management. I read books, I read articles, podcasts, etc. It's my job, of course, so I want to keep up with what's happening in the PM world. But I'm also just a product nerd. I actually find it fun. I will speak at an occasional party, telling my friends all about product management, which, really makes me popular, as you can imagine. So I'm always looking for really good content. But what I'm finding more and more often is that when I'm looking for content on product management, I find good content, but it's typically centered around how to make great software and technology products, how to prioritize a backlog, how to manage tech debt, increase MRR, monthly recurring revenue, Kanban board, Scrum Master, story points, development velocity, all of these really important concepts. But it's very software centric. And I'm hoping this great content continues to be produced because there's a lot of software products out there, a lot of software product managers out there. And to be sure, some of the information is relevant for any product manager, regardless of what type of product they own. But today I want to talk a little bit about non-software products. I find a gap in content. I find a gap in focus. Let's be honest, technology makes the world go round. So I understand it. I understand that a lot of the product management focus these days is, very technology and software focused. But what's important to remember is that the whole world that exists around us is created by product managers, right? The chair you're sitting in, the drywall and the wood used to build the room you're in right now, the engine that powers your automobile, those heated seats in your automobile, which frankly are really the best part of cars these days. They're amazing. The refrigerator in your kitchen, the list goes on and on. When I was a product manager, and in product leader roles, I worked mostly on digital products, data and analytics, digital media, personal health apps, those sorts of things. But in my work as an advisor, trainer, consultant over the last 5 years or so, I've spent a lot of time with product teams across various industries, most of them, frankly, physical rather than digital. So I have this broad perspective that I love, and it's been a fun ride in learning the differences. And of course, there are lots of similarities, but there are some differences in being a product manager for a software product versus a physical product. Is the product manager role different for a software product than a PM role for a physical product? Most of the time, or a bulk of the role is the same, right? You have to do the same things. You have to understand the same types of things, regardless of what type of product you own, but there are some real nuances that matter. So I want to talk about that today. Let's talk about a couple of the things that I've found that if you're a product manager for a physical product that's not wholly digital software based, there are some things you need to be aware of, that you need to focus on to make yourself most successful. We're not going to have time to talk about all of them, but I want to touch on a couple of things. So to get started, you may have seen a popular graphic by Martin Erickson, founder of Product Tank, co-founder of Mind the Product, very brilliant thought leader in the product management field. He writes, he speaks. He's a wonderful person in our world. About 10 years ago, he introduced an illustration. It was a Venn diagram, of course, the three circles that interconnect in the center. The diagram defined product management and the product manager role as the intersection between business, technology, and user experience. or UX. So picture that Venn diagram. The three circles of the diagram are business, technology, and UX. And where they all intersect is the product manager. The product manager is the intersection of those business, technology, and UX. So I think that's really good, clear way of looking at a product manager role in a software company. It makes sense at a high level. I think it's spot on, right? And certainly, who am I to contradict or argue against Martin? But in a physical goods company, I would argue that the illustration needs a bit of a tweak. So again, let's picture that Venn diagram and those three circles. But this time, the three circles are business, engineering, and operations. And the product manager is the intersection of those three functions: business, engineering, and operations, right? So let's talk a little bit more about these. Business. At the end of the day, a product manager role is a business role, period. I've had some debates and spirited conversations about this, but I will always believe that at the end of the day, your role in as a product manager is to bring value to the business, right? Even if you're an engineer or a scientist or a technologist by training or in past positions, if you're in a product manager role now, the key objective of your role is to bring business value to the organization. And we do that hopefully through creating products that bring value to the market and to the customer. While the mechanisms by which we do business may differ, at the core of every single product manager, regardless of industry, product type, etc., is to be drivers of business success. Okay, we don't do it alone, of course. I mean, we have a huge cross-functional stakeholder team, and internally we're as a team trying to build and drive success. But you're at the center of that as a product manager. If our efforts are not having a positive impact on the business, we're not living up to the potential of the product manager role. Okay, so we must be good business people with solid business acumen. So that's the first circle in that Venn diagram. The second circle in my Venn diagram is engineering, which in my opinion is a little bit more applicable term than technology. So while obviously there may be some technology involved, a lot of times in these physical good companies, it's not a computer scientist or a software developer or software engineer. It's another type of engineer. It's a mechanical engineer, or civil or petroleum or aerospace engineer, perhaps a biomedical scientist or a nuclear physicist. Engineering more closely encompasses the function in many of these companies than quote unquote technology. So from a product manager perspective, we mustn't be an engineer, but we do require a fundamental level of understanding of the science behind our products. Okay, so while we may not be nuclear physicists ourselves, we should understand the basic science of what makes this product and this solution valuable to the customer. So that's the engineering circle. We don't have to be engineers ourselves, but we do need to understand that function, and we are at the intersection of that function within the organization. And the third part of that Venn diagram is operations. Okay, so this is that third part, and to me, quite distinct from software products to non-software products. Operations is part of any business, right? Whether you're a software company or not. But in terms of product management, this is really important when we're building physical type products, because operations in those types of businesses is often the function responsible for the actual creation of the goods and services, right? So that includes supply chain, manufacturing, assembly, production planning, facilities management, capacity, inventory, etc. Product managers must understand how all of these groups work together. How does supply chain impact my product success? Well, we get components from all over the world, and my supply chain processes and my supply chain group is instrumental in ultimately getting those components to the manufacturing plant to assemble, to create, to then pick and ship to customers, right? And so while we don't control those processes and activities, we rely on our supply chain experts in that group to run that and to make sure all of that is running effectively. These processes are so interrelated and critical to our product success. And if we're the owner of the products, we've got to really understand how all of that works. Okay. So again, Picture that Venn diagram, 3 circles: business, engineering, operations. At the intersection of those 3 is you, the product manager. So you're going to have a little bit more domain expertise or business knowledge than maybe some of your software counterparts. You're going to have to understand capacity planning and manufacturing and supply chain, whereas that's not really a necessary skill set or knowledge base for software product managers. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how you can become successful in addition to grasping everything that I just said, understanding those stakeholders, the business side of things, engineering, operations, right? I also want you to think about how you can become an expert on customer and market knowledge. Okay. Now, of course, this is important for every product manager, regardless of product that you own. You have to know your customers. It's the bedrock of being a great product manager. But often in industrial, manufacturing, automotive, consumer goods, et cetera, type companies, you'll have what I call a chain of customers. So you must be even more diligent in your research and in your understanding. So I'm sure you've heard the term B2B, business to business, meaning your business sells its products to other businesses, and B2C, business to consumer, meaning your company sells its products to consumers. Well, in B2B companies, and especially B2B companies that create physical products, while your direct customer is a business, you often have what I call a customer chain. So your customer may sell to other businesses, which in turn sell to other businesses, or perhaps consumers. So your chain may be B to B to B, or B to B to B to C, right? And so you've got all of these layers of customers between you, the product manager, and that end customer or end user. So we've got to be good at understanding all of those layers, who's within those layers, what is their needs, what are their goals, et cetera. How do they impact our ultimate success? And we've got to have a plan for communicating and gathering feedback. For example, I have a consumer electronics client that uses a distributor that has relationships with specialty retailers. Using this distributor helps them get into some of these retail customers as opposed to having direct relationships with all of these retailers. So they use this distributor, has these relationships with specialty retailers. So the distributor is their first line customer. And that distributor cares about sales volumes, their profitability, and maintaining those customer relationships. So the consumer electronics company has to really understand the distributor being, a customer of theirs. But then that their product has, to go from the distributor to the distributor's customer. Okay, and the distributor's customer are the specialty retailers, in this case, truck stops, convenience stores, et cetera. So those businesses, truck stops, convenience stores, they care about product selection, price, inventory, sell-through, traffic in their stores, et cetera. So then after that, you've ultimately got the end consumer, the person purchasing the electronics products to use in their automobile. And those customers care about look and feel, functionality, battery life, power options, et cetera. So as a product manager, you've got the distributor, you've got the retailer, you've got the consumer, and you have to discern all of their various needs and build products around that, right? You've got to understand what's going to get the priority from your distributor. You've got to understand what's going to get you that floor space in the retailer. And ultimately, you've got to understand what the end consumer is going to want in your product. You can't forget about any of those. And you have to prioritize, right? You're going to prioritize the end consumer and make a great product for them that will then kind of drive some of the other things. You're going to make sure that you have a product that's going to hit the cost levels and the pricing levels and the margin levels for your distributors and retailers. All of that has to go into your plan. And so you've got 3 levels that have different needs, different value propositions from your products, and you've got to understand them all. Okay. You've got to understand how they all work and how they all work together. So while customer analysis sounds simple and sounds, consistent across all product managers, in some cases, especially physical products and that sort of thing, you've got a little bit more of a complex world. So you need to be a little bit more diligent. Now, finally, I want you to remember that as a product manager, you are the expert on the problem, not the solution. Okay, let me repeat that. You are the expert on the problem, not necessarily the solution. What I've found quite often in engineering and science-based companies is that most of the product managers are former engineers. And so they know the science behind the products. They may even have been part of the team that originally built some of the products from the engineering side. They understand the minute details of how the solution works and why it was built the way it was in the first place. And that's all wonderful. And that knowledge is a wonderful thing to have because it can add credibility to the product manager when they're talking to internal engineering partners, and in some cases when they're talking to clients. But when you're in a product manager role, you must first and foremost be the customer advocate. You've got to wear the customer and the market hat. You're the customer problem expert, not the wearing of the engineering hat. Okay. What are you trying to solve for the customer? Why? What core needs are not being met that maybe you could find some ways to meet? What's that customer's world like? What are their goals and stressors and obstacles and so on? You've really got to be the person who understands the customer better than anyone else. So while you may be capable of solving the problem because of your education and expertise, you may leverage some of that expertise to collaborate with your engineering partners on different creative solutions. You're not wearing that engineering hat in lieu of the customer hat. Okay. So as a product manager, you are an expert on the problem, not necessarily the solution. That's a trap I see non-software or physical product managers fall into quite often. They rely too heavily on their solution side, their engineering side, and not the customer and the problem side. Okay. So just to summarize this conversation, you as a product manager of a physical product sit at the intersection of business, engineering, and operations. You've got to learn the interconnectedness of those different activities. You've got to become not necessarily an expert on all of them, but you've got to really understand how they all fit together and all of those operations and activities connect that in a way to create and manage physical products. But don't become too inwardly focused. Keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your customers. Okay. All the customers throughout the chain, how the markets are changing and potentially impacting those customer needs. Okay. So if you focus on those couple of things, understanding where you sit within the business and how you can be a customer expert, you'll start to feel more confident in your role and you'll become more successful as a product manager. And I'd love to throw this out there. If any of you have stories to share, or if you'd like to talk about your experiences, find me on LinkedIn, email me, jjrorie@sequentlearning.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'm always looking for new people to meet and to hear stories from, because while our experience may be somewhat similar, there's always some fun stories out there of what you've gone through. So hit me up, reach out. I would love to talk to you. And thank you for joining us on Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. I am JJ Rorie, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. If you'd like to take your career to the next level with additional tools, training, coaching, and books, be sure to visit Sequent Learning Networks at sequentlearning.com.